Hello, video storytellers. This is Mr. O, and this is going to be your third editing project. And what's interesting that this is a somewhat bigger project with more detail to it, but I'm going to try to move a little bit faster whenever I can to keep this video moving and to assume just a little more knowledge on your part. Okay, I'm going to try to get your project up. Give me a second here to reduce me and bring this up. And this is a look at what this Sarasota project is going to look like when you're done. And I'm going to play it in a moment imperfectly because you're going to hear the sound through my computer speakers, but it'll work just fine. And before I do that, I just want to talk about this structure here in the timeline. So we've got two video tracks. V2 is being used just for graphics. V1 is all our video is on V1. We get a little bit more distinctly separated when we get to audio tracks. All of this green stuff right here, those are my voice tracks.
The city of Sarasota.
And we're going to talk about why it's important to keep things separate. A2 is soundbite sound.
There's good shopping.
And A3 is all nat sound. And the reason why we want to keep our audio tracks distinct is partly because we know exactly what everything is when we look at it. It makes things easier to identify. But there are also, and right here, if you see my cursor, there are points where audio blends, and it's only possible to blend audio when you have audio on in separate tracks to do that. Okay, let's watch the piece. I want you to be looking at the program panel to see the movie as it's played, and also keep your eye a little bit on the program panel, excuse me, the timeline, so you can see that too. Here we go.
Along Florida's west coast, the city of Sarasota is a rather unexpected mix of beauty and culture.
There are good restaurants, there's good theater, there's good music. There's good shopping, there's good golf, there's good fishing, there's good boating. I mean, there's just a lot to do here.
Sarasota is connected by the Ringling Bridge to islands or keys on the Gulf. Along the main drag, there's an iconic and huge sculpture of a sailor kissing his girlfriend, a nod to the famous photo in New York's Times Square, marking victory in Japan and the end of World War II. Perhaps what really sets this place apart is its posh city center filled with boutiques and restaurants.
I think it's appealing to more of the younger crowd and introducing the older crowd that has been here for a while, introducing them to a newer idea of Sarasota.
Many in Sarasota are not from Sarasota, at least not originally. There are transplants.
And I was just looking for a change, so I moved down here. And I loved it, so I never left.
And there are tourists.
I think it's really cute. I love it. It's fun.
But whether here for good or just a while, a lot of folks seem to love a place that mixes a flair for the artistic with a dazzling view.
That's it, a little video pad, and it fades to black. A couple of things that I want to point out, which is you will note that there are nat sound breaks in here most distinctly at the very beginning, with the boat coming in. And another thing that we'll be working on is that we're going to be working with a still.
New York's Times Square,
and
marking victory in Japan.
Note how it zooms
the
here.
End of World War.
There's a little bit of motion there, so we're going to do a little bit with motion as well. Okay, let's get started so you can make a version of this bad boy. I want to remind you it's really good to edit on, to save your stuff on an external hard drive or on a flash drive. Ideally, you should do that. If not, put your stuff on a desktop. But this is more portable, and you'll be happier if you do that. Okay, so I'm going to get myself off screen for a second and go to my hard drive, my external hard drive, and I'm going to make a new Sarasota folder. I have a few of them, and I'm going to call this one Sarasota 3, and inside there I want to make in Sarasota 3 I'm going to make 4 subfolders. I can go File, New Folder, or Shift Command N, boom, 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 boom. I'm going to use the same file structure which is 1 raw, 2 project, 3 drafts, and 4 master. And once I've done that, I'm going to open up the raw file and just make it a little small and kind of keep it to the side, because that's where I'm going to put all my video once I get it. Where is the video? Well, I've shared it with you in your Google Drive. We're going to BRD Fall Editing Projects, and you are going in there and going into Sarasota. Before we talk about video, I want you to note that there are scripts and documents in here, 2 of them in fact. And excuse me, I didn't open it. There they are. And for practice edit and the Sarasota script, please print those documents. It's going to be a lot easier for your work, especially this script document, because you will want that to have at your side. Meantime, I'm going to speed this up a little bit, but I want you to highlight and everything that's in here, and then you will do a download. Let's pretend that that just happened, that everything was downloaded, and here it is. All the stuff is downloaded after you've done that, and after you download it, then highlight everything, copy it, and put it into your raw folder. Paste it in there. And that'll take a moment. And once you have everything in your raw folder and your file structure is set, just like the other projects, just like what we're always going to do for future ones, at that point, you are ready to launch Premiere, and I look ready to go. Good. Okay, so to launch Premiere, get to it as you know how to on your computer. I have it a couple versions, in fact, and what I'm trying to get to is the home screen, where I'm going to pick New Project, and then I'm going to get to the title screen. Pick New Project. Here's the title screen. I'm going to call this Sarasota 3. Like in other projects, this is very important. I am going to say where I want it saved, and I'm looking for, on my hard drive, the 2 project file that I created in the folder I just created. So that folder you just created, pick 2 project, check scratch disk to make sure everything is going into your project folder, click OK, and your template is ready to begin. I'm going to bring myself up for a second and say hello. And I've got these with me. I've got a script and I've got a practice edit sheet. I know it's coming out backwards here, but those are really good to have handy. In the back of the practice edit guide is where there are some shortcuts. So make sure that you have those, although I will be bringing up documents on screen every once in a while. Back to our template. We're going to import now. To do that, we go File, Import, or simply Command or Control I if you're on a PC. And I'm getting to my raw folder. I want to make sure this is the right one. Sarasota 3, raw folder. And I am going to import everything. And that's going to go into my project panel. And it will take really just a moment or two. There it is. Remember in previous videos we talked about the tilde key. The tilde key is that squiggly key to the left of the number 1 on your keyboard. And if you're highlighted in the project panel and you hit the tilde key, that'll make it go full screen. There's also these icon view and list view icons, which will control the way things look in your project panel. Click on icon view and you can see how your clips can be shown as icons, which might be handy for just a moment. I'm going to pull up the practice edit guide, and this is on the second page of this, number 5, organize the video. I've given you information on this sheet which will give you the names of 4 different bins and what clips I want you to put into which bins. Again, if you don't do this, it won't be the end of the world, but if you can learn how to do it, it's handy for when you have a larger project. So I'm going to minimize that, and I'm going to make bins and give them names as I go. To create a bin, I can go down here where it says New Bin and click on that. There's also a shortcut, which is Command B or Control B. And the first bin I want to make is called Downtown. So I'll backspace and call it Downtown. Next bin is going to be called Interviews. Interviews. Next bin is going to be called VJ Kiss. VJ Kiss. Next bin is going to be called Water. I want to get certain video into certain bins. Let's start with everything that's going into Downtown. We want to get 1, 4, and 21. And actually, you know what? I find this a little easier to do if I'm in the list view because I can see the numbers better. So I'm going to go back to list view, and my bins are at the bottom. And if I highlight 1, use the command key to hold down, 1, 4, and 21, I can highlight all of them. And if I grab from the green-purple area, I can hold down and bring it into Downtown and just release there. And look, I moved the 3 clips into this bin, this subfolder, which is nice. My sheet tells me to do the same thing for clips 30 through 46. So I'm going to highlight those, drag them to Downtown, and there they are. I can make them appear or disappear with that side toggle, and I'm done with the Downtown folder. Let's go to Interviews. I want 5, 6, 7, 8. I want those clips to go into Interviews. I'm going to drag them to Interviews, and there they are. Fun. Now I'm going to do VJ Kiss, which is clips 24 and 28. 24, 28, and drag those into VJ Kiss. There's also this VJ Times Square photo I want to put into VJ Kiss too. And then the rest of them, I missed the VJ Kiss one here. I want that one to go in. The rest of them are going to go into the Water folder. All right, so I think I got that pretty good. I can hit the tilde key again, and now my clips are organized and I should be able to find them better, and I'm going to get ready to get started with editing. So when you're editing a project that's a little bit larger, it's a really good idea to edit the audio structure first. So I'm pulling up the script, and what I'm saying is all this stuff on the left, all this B-roll that you see in these little clips here, we're mostly not going to get to that until later. First, we're going to edit the voice tracks, the sound bites, and leave space for not sound, and figure out how long this whole thing is. It's a better way to go, and it saves time. So the first clip I want to get you to is to clip number 19, which I think is under Water. Double click on it. And there it is. And we're gonna just put this in and delete it. We're just matching up the settings of the video to the timeline, and we're dragging from the source panel into the timeline, then release. And you get your video setting matched timeline. Let's change the appearance. First, highlight things that are in blue. I'm gonna get rid of one of my video tracks. I don't need it, so I'm going to go to Sequence, delete tracks, then go find video 3. I'm going to get rid of that. That's my dog. And I'm going to pause. Okay, I put my dog outside. We can continue. Sorry about that. And we want to make these tracks larger. We can do that in a couple of ways. You can do it manually by pulling on the edges, but the quicker trick is for video, Command plus or Control plus on a PC, I think. Boom, boom, and Option plus will get your audio tracks bigger. Again, you can pull them if you need to and make it so that you can really see these all pretty well here. And then you can just highlight the clip that you dragged in so it gets that white border and hit the delete key. And now we're really ready to get started. Again, it's really important to have that script near you because I'm going to be making references to it quite a bit. The first couple things we're going to do is lay in this voice track followed by this sound bite. So you need to have the script to catch the references that I'm going to be making. All right, let's go to your voice tracks, which are in your project panel but not in a bin. So if you double click on voice tracks, you'll see that you've got a waveform where you can really both see the edits and hear them at the same time. The first voice track is going to be start with Along Florida's West Coast. And I can both see the point where that audio waveform begins, and I'm going to put an I as an endpoint right in front of it.
Along Florida's west coast.
And I can see where it ends. It's going to end with beauty and culture, and I'm going to put an out point right after it too. You can use those little baby arrow keys to adjust to get to the right spot, but get an I and an O around that first voice track on the source panel. And we're just going to, on the timeline, we're going to go about 2 seconds in. See that right there on the counter? And we're going to give an I as for endpoint. And please target that to A1, right there, A1. Once you've got a endpoint, an out point on the source panel, and an endpoint on the timeline, hit the period key, and boom, your first edit is in. Now we're going to go to a soundbite, which is going to be under interviews, and it's going to be number 8, Carrie. Double click on that, so there he is. You can see Carrie. If you look at your script, it'll tell you where the time code for the byte is, around 228, and it tells you exactly what the byte says. So you're looking for that time and this in queue, there's good restaurants, and the end is going to be a lot to do here. Go to 228 on clip 8 or close to it, and look, we're trying to get just before there's good restaurants.
It is just, they're a good restaurant.
Let me try that again.
And
right there, he sort of stumbles. I found the endpoint at around 228.27. Let's see if I got it.
There are good restaurants, there's good theater, there's good music, there's good shopping, there's good golf, there's good fishing, there's good boating. I mean, there's just a lot to do here.
Hit the space bar when he's done talking, a lot to do here. Give yourself an out point. So I've got an in point just before he speaks, an out point when I want him to end. I'm going to my timeline now, and I'm targeting this to V1 and A2. I want the video on the video line, and I want the soundbite sound on the soundbite line, A2. Hit the period key, and boom, Carrie
Shopping
is in. Good. All right, if we get the script back up, I think we can move a little bit more quickly right now because you have a better idea of what you're doing. So I'm going to do these 3 voice tracks with some speed. This guy, and this next one, and then we'll get to a soundbite. And with the voice tracks, I'm going to leave a little bit of that sound in between most of the time. Get your playhead to the very end of Carrie and give me an endpoint there. Good. Click on your voice tracks. The next voice track is Sarasota is connected. Get right in front of that voice track, which you can see.
Sarasota is connected by the Ringling Bridge to islands or keys on the Gulf.
On the Gulf, give me an out point there. I'm targeting this to A1. I've got my 3 points. Boom, that's in. Now I'm just going to leave a little space, like a second-ish, between these two tracks and give myself an endpoint on the timeline. And I'm going to the next track, which starts with along the main drag. Finding it, I'm giving myself an endpoint in front of it.
Along the main drag, there's an...
And I'm just going to speed up, and I'm going to go all the way to the end where it says the end of World War II.
At the end of World War II.
Hit the space bar, give myself an out point. I've got 2 points here. I've got 1 point here. Looks pretty good. I'm targeted A1. Boom. That's going in. Now I'm going to leave just one more little space for nat sound, and I'm going to give myself an in right there on the timeline after that track. And the next track, which is getting to page 2, is perhaps what sets this place, perhaps what really sets this place apart. Let's go here to just in front of it. And
perhaps what really sets this place apart is its posh city center filled with boutiques and restaurants.
Boutiques and restaurants is the end of that. Put an out cue there. I've got it targeted, and boom, I quickly got 3 tracks in. Now I'm going to leave my playhead right there, and I'm going to put I as for endpoint there for our next soundbite, which, as your script shows you, is with Mark Zangi on clip 7. I go to clip 7. There's Mark. How you doing, bud? The script calls for, let's take a look at it. Bink 2:05 is the general time code. The soundbite says, I think it's appealing to a younger crowd. The out cue is newer idea of Sarasota. If you go to around 2:05, come on, baby, and you'll see he says something like the word craft.
Like being the more modern and the more craft.
More craft. Find that. After he says more craft, give yourself an I as for endpoint, and then he'll say, I think it's appealing.
I think it's appealing to more of the younger crowd and introducing the older crowd that has been here for a while, introducing them to a newer idea of Sarasota.
Sarasota is the out. Hit the space bar. Give yourself an out point there. In and out point on the source panel. You've got your in on the timeline, but you want to make sure you target that to V1 and A2. And now Mark is in your piece. Fantastico. Now we have more than half of the audio structure down, and we've got a couple of tracks and sound bites to go, so let's move forward. Go to your voice tracks, and we're looking for many in Sarasota are not from Sarasota, at least not originally. I think that's over here. I'm giving myself an endpoint. Let's see.
Many in Sarasota are not from Sarasota, at least not originally. There are transplants.
Transplants is the end of that track. I have an in and an out around that. I'm going to slide forward on my roll bar a little bit so I can see where things are at better. I'm giving myself an endpoint at the end of Mark. I'm targeting to A1, and I hit the period key, and boom, the track is in. Next up is a soundbite from Tara Flores on clip 6. The script says in the information there that she's about around 33 seconds. She says, and I was just looking for a change. And so let's go to about 33-ish, a little less maybe. Ooh, sorry, more here.
College.
And I think I'm right near it. I'm right in front of before she says, and I was looking for a change.
And I was just looking for a change, so I moved down here. And I loved it, so I never left.
Never left is the end. So I've got an I for in, O for out on that soundbite. I have my playhead at the end of this track. And by the way, I can put an in here, or if I just leave my playhead there, it'll work just as well as an in cue. That's another trick. I'm targeting this to V1 and A2, hit the period, and boom, now that goes in. We have a little baby track that we're going to add now, which says, and there are tourists. It's this little waveform here. It's really short. In before it.
And there are tourists.
And give me an out, a little sliver there. I'm targeting that to A1, and I'm hitting the period key, and Boom, that goes there. Now, if I give an endpoint there or just leave my playhead there, I'm ready for a very short bite from Mar Goldberg, where she says, I think it's really cute. I love it. It's fun. That's on clip 5 at 39 seconds. So I'm going to clip 5, and I'm going to about 39 seconds-ish.
What do you think of Sarasota in terms of what it offers for you?
I think
Using the arrow keys to get just in front of her. Let's see if I got it.
I think it's really cute. I love it. It's fun.
So I have an in and an out around that bite. I'm targeting that to V1 and A2. Hit the period key. Now that sound bite is in. One more voice track to go and I'm good. On this voice track, I think I goofed a little bit. So if you play it, you'll hear that I go,
but whether here for good.
That was a mistake. I'm going to start over at that point. So after that first boo-boo, give me an in point before, but whether here for good.
But whether here for good or just a while, a lot of folks seem to love a place that mixes a flair for the artistic with a dazzling view.
Dazzling view is the end of that track. Put an O for out point on the end of that. And on the timeline, target that, oops, don't lock it, to A1 and hit the period key and boom, my audio structure is down. Hit File, Save at this point, something that you should do periodically to make sure that your project is good. And you can see that I've got, by using the roll bar here, I can kind of look at everything I've accomplished so far. Very good. Hello. Okay, so now we're going to add B-roll to the piece. We're going to, wallpaper is another term, we're going to add the video for all those empty spaces. And in referring to the script, we are really looking at all these clips right here. So again, make sure you have that script right there as I make references to it. We are going to the beginning to clip 19, which is going to be in water. Double clip on clip 19. And what I want you to do is to go pretty deep into the clip, like around 19 seconds, just before the boat enters the shot. So get the boat out of the shot, just out. Give me an in point there. And tell you what, take this until the boat goes out of the shot for a good bit. Give it a little pad and give me an out point there. That's pretty good. Now on the timeline, I want you to give me an in point at 0, right at the very beginning. Target this to V1 and A3. We're putting our nat sound onto A3. And once you've got 3 points, not 4, 1, 2, 3, you're pretty good, and you can hit the period button, and there's your first shot. Next shot is going to be some buildings. I want to have an in cue after, or an in point after, along Florida's west coast.
Along Florida's west coast.
So give me an I for in point right after West Coast or ballpark. Click on clip number 15, again in water. Go till after my fingers get out of the shot. Go to like 20 seconds-ish in. Give me an in point there. And I forgot to mention an out point that I want on the timeline. I want an out point probably just before beauty.
Sarasota is a rather unexpected mix of...
Right after mix of. That's a good out point. So if you have an in and out on the timeline and an in point on the source panel, you're targeted to V1 and A3 like that. Hit the period key, and now that shot is in. Next, we're going to go to a very pretty bird, clip number 13, a heron. Okay, so the heron, if you can look at its feet, it's making a little funky chicken dance around 8 seconds in. Try to get somewhere in there for an in point as it's walking. Give me, on the timeline, an in point right at the end of what you just did or just before the word beauty. And then cover a little bit of Kerry. We're not going to step on his sound. I want you to go a little bit into Kerry or after he says there's good restaurants.
Beauty and culture.
There are good restaurants.
So good restaurants is a good out point. We'll cover the little top of Kerry's video so that we'll hear him before we see him. And give me an out point there. But make sure you're targeted to V1 and A3 so we don't step on his audio. If this was on A2, we would be knocking off some of his audio, a bad thing. Make sure it's on A3. Hit the period key, and now your bird is in. Very nice. So you can go back and take a look at it, but I'm going to move forward. I want you to go to the end of Kerry's soundbite and give me an in cue there. And we're going to have one shot for this next track, which is Sarasota's Connected by the Ringling Bridge, etc. That's going to be on clip number 14. Go in a little bit and give me an in cue. Check to play it to make sure it's stable. Looks pretty good. It gets a little wobbly maybe. Let me try that again. Yeah, looks pretty good. Okay, I'd go in around a good in point is probably around 8 seconds, and you're taking that all the way to the end of the voice track where it says keys on the Gulf. So you have an in on the source, in and out on the timeline, targeted V1, A3, boom, that shot goes in. Now you're going to clip number 24 from VJ Kiss. We're going to that VJ Kiss folder, and we're looking for clip 24 where there's the statue in the background and there's traffic. Go in where there's a little gap like around 3 seconds in. Give yourself an in cue there. On the timeline, I want you to go to the end of what you last edited, keys on the Gulf. Give yourself an in cue over video there ideally, and go all the way to the word iconic or just before it.
Along the main drag, there's an iconic.
And yeah, that's pretty good. Give myself an out there. And so I've got 3 points, right? And I'm targeted to V1 and A3. That shot goes in. Now, make sure you're on video for your in point on the timeline. I want you to take this on the timeline all the way from iconic to his girlfriend.
Iconic and huge sculpture of a sailor kissing his girlfriend.
And give me an out point there. The shot we're going to go to is clip number 48, which is a matching shot. And you can just go in a little bit near the top, give yourself an in point there. And as long as it's targeted to V1 and A3, you're ready to hit the period key, and that guy goes in. That's good. So now we're ready to put in a still picture of for this last part, and we're going to do a couple of things with it. What I want you to do is give me an in and out on the timeline. So go from girlfriend and all the way to World War II.
World War II.
And then out there. In and out on the timeline to receive a still image. If you double click on VJ Times Square, you'll see the black and white still image. It's got an in and an out, and I would like you to remove the out point. If you go to your practice edit sheet and you look in the back where the shortcuts are, you see that Alt Option O is a way to delete an in point. Alt Option O is to delete an out point. This is the all caps version, is the PC version for this. So I want you to get rid of the out point. It just makes it easier to work with. So I'm going in here and I'm going Option O, and it's gone. All right. Now I've got 3 points. I've got one at the beginning, and it's just video. There's no audio to worry about. It's targeted to V1. I hit the period button. The good news is it's in. The bad news is it's tiny. What am I going to do with that? Well, guess what? We can make things bigger. And in this stage, we're going to do 2 things. We are going to make it bigger first, and then we're going to add some motion. The bigger part is easy. If you don't want to do the motion, just bag it. But let's see if you can figure it out as we go. Click on the clip, highlight it, all right? Or even double click on it, better. Double click on it, and when you see this word in the project panel that says Effect Controls, click on that. And Effect Controls will give you a bunch of choices. Actually, it might look more like this when you open it, where you just see a few things. But if you go to the little arrow that's to the left of the word motion and you down toggle, then all these things around motion come up. I want you to be concerned with the blue numbers to the right of scale. If you hover and then press down with your mouse to make those numbers bigger, what happens? The picture gets larger. And I would like you to take it all the way to the edges. It's good if you also go over to here on the program panel. You might be on half resolution, which would give you a fuzzier look. Make sure this says full so it looks sharper. All right, so now we're going to work on motion. Okay, so I just want to pop in here to say that the idea of doing motion with a still image is often called the Ken Burns effect, named after the famous documentary filmmaker who really used a lot of it in some of his history pieces. And it's the idea that you can just take a still image, and if you move it a little bit, it's going to be more interesting to look at. So all we're going to do is we're going to take this still and we're going to make it zoom in a little bit and figure out how to do that. Goodbye me. We are still in effect controls. That's where you want to be. What I want you to do is I want you to take the playhead on the timeline and go to near the very beginning of where the picture is. You'll note it's mirroring the same thing over on this side of the project panel. Once you have it near the very beginning, then there's this little stopwatchy looking thing to the left of the word scale. I want you to click on it so it goes blue. And when you did that, it made a little diamond right there. That's called a key point. And key points are, in both video and audio, points of change. We're going to make a change from that point to the next point. And now take the playhead and bring it near the very end. And once it's at the very end, I want you to increase the scale. The more you scale up, the faster your zoom will be. The less you scale up, the slower it will be. So I'm just going to go in a little bit. And as a result of that, I created another key point. And if I go back and play it again, look what happens.
A nod to the famous photo in New York's Times Square, marking victory in Japan and the end of World War II.
It slowly zoomed as I was speaking because I made that key point. Okay, back to regular stuff. Let's start with audio first, and I'm going to expand the roll bar at the bottom so we can see more here. And while I'm not going to do this entirely, I'm going to suggest you do an audio audit for the piece, which means that you're going to go through kind of main things like tracks and bikes and make sure that the levels are okay. You can't tell if the levels are okay just by listening or what your headphones tell you. You have to look at the audio meter. For example, I'm playing this first track.
The city of Sarasota is a rather unexpected.
It's okay, but where I really want to get to is I want to get into the -12 to -6 range. I want to go up a little bit on those tracks. Play it again.
Florida's west coast. The city of Sarasota
That's
is
much better. And so that means that for all of my video tracks, audio voice tracks, I'm going to want to bring it up a little bit and check all of them as I go. And I'll do the same thing for the sound bites. Let's listen to Kerry.
There's good shopping, there's good golf.
It's not bad. Maybe he could go up just maybe a tad, okay?
There's good fishing, there's good boating. I mean,
yeah. So do that with all of the tracks and bites and make sure that the levels are okay, and that they're hitting into the full range at -12, -6. In other words, the top of the green. You don't, I'm going to do something bad here. You don't want the soundbite to be
shopping, there's good golf, there's good,
getting into that red like that. That's, that's overmodulating a little bit. So make it so it's more
good fishing,
appropriate. Okay, now let's do a couple things with this first clip. I want you to take your playhead to the very beginning of the piece, and I want you to highlight that first clip of the boat coming in. There's nat sound on it, but it's a little bit hard to hear. And the reason why it's hard to hear is that I shot it from far away. But we can do something called audio gain to make sound that's very low a lot louder. Oh, the way to get to it is go clip, audio options, audio gain, or just simply hit the G key, G as in girl. And an audio gain window will come in, and you can either add or subtract decibels. So to add, we simply would put in a number. If I put a minus at the front, it would be less. But I'm going to add 15 decibels, and watch what happens to the audio part of the clip when I hit OK. Boom! There's a lot more audio that's audible now. And it's good. It's good nat sound. When I play it, I can hear it, and it's getting right up there. But one thing I would like to do is I would like it to get quieter once my voice tracks starts. So I'm going to make a keyframe for audio here by using the pen tool. See that little pen, fountain pen thing? If I click on that, it gives me what looks like a little fountain pen thing. And if I click right under this point, the beginning of my audio, and click and make 2 dots. See those 2 dots in there? I'm going to make that a little bit larger. Option plus. There you go. Then I can do something about it. So I want to get rid of the pen tool, because if I don't do that, it's going to keep on making key points. So I'm going to go back to the selection tool. And now when I pull down on the second dot, I can pull it down so the audio drops, and the sound is going to work pretty well where it's going to be loud before my voice track and quieter as my voice track gets started.
Along Florida's west coast, the city of Sarasota.
Pretty good. Okay. Let's move on to graphics. So you're going to make 4 graphics. You have 4 sound bites in there that you should make 4 graphics for. You could make an additional locator graphic that says Sarasota near the very top. But for instructional purposes here, I'm going to make 1 graphic like we've done before from scratch. And then I'm going to, from that point on, I'm going to copy that graphic and paste it in my project panel, and then change it. It's an efficient method to kind of, when you have to make a bunch of graphics, and it keeps the look of them consistent. There's no change in color or size necessarily, and it can be a good way to work. Okay, goodbye me. Let's go to put the playhead on the timeline on Kerry. Very good. Go to File, New, Legacy Title. File, New, Legacy Title. And we're going to give this a name. We're going to call it K Kerry. That's all you need. And click OK. And then you get your title maker box. Remember, that's a movable thing. And you should shift the edges around so that you see all the sides. You need some of the stuff in these panels on the side. And right now I'm having trouble seeing them. So you want to adjust it so it looks more like that. Click on the type tool. You probably don't need to. It'll probably just work anyway. Click somewhere below his chin. You'll see a cursor. And use your script to know what to write. It's Kerry Slagle, S-L-A-G-L-E. And he is a resident. And then highlight his graphic, or the font rather, and pick a style that you think is pretty good. Then once you still have it all highlighted, you're going to change font size to something considerably bigger. And he's not a resident, he's a resident. And we want to make the second line You know what? I don't know if I like that. How about that? That's a little better. Better font style. And you want to make the second line a little bit smaller than the top. So I'm going to just make that one a little bit less. And then you use the X and Y position like we've done before to get it in position below his chin and within these rectangles, which are called safe title area. That's pretty good. Keep it highlighted, and let's add a little drop shadow by making sure that shadow is checked and increasing this distance number down here. If I go too far, I'll get a huge drop shadow. I just want a little baby drop shadow to give it a little bit more visibility. When you're done with creating that, X out of it, and then you can drag Carrie's title to V2 and put it right over him. And we'll add some dissolves in just a moment. But now I want to copy and paste that graphic, and then I'll make a different one for Mark Zengi without having to start all over again. So if I highlight Carrie, I'm in the project panel, and I just make sure that's highlighted. I go Edit, Copy, Edit, Paste, and watch a new graphic will appear. And that new one that's highlighted is going to be the one I'm going to change, and I'm going to give it a new name. I'm going to call it Mark. Okay? So now watch this. I'm going to go over Mark. I'm going to put my playhead over Mark. I'm going to double click on this new Mark graphic I made. And it says the same thing as before because I just copied it. But now I don't have to go through a big rigmarole. I can just go Mark Zengi, Z-A-N-G-H-I. Make sure you spell it right. And once I've done that, then I can grab that graphic and put it over Mark. Remember, these graphics, you can make them longer or shorter. They're default 5 seconds. And they could all use a little bit of a transition, a dissolve on each end. So if you go into what I just did is I went into effects, I went into video transitions, I went to dissolves, I went to cross dissolve, and I'm going to drag a dissolve effect. I think I'm going to try that again on each end of the graphic. And I'll do that with the other ones too. And the good news is that I got the dissolves in there. The bad news is that they're a little slow. So if you look at it,
Good music. There's a good.
yeah, that's way too slow. So double click on the 1 second default dissolve that you have in there, get a duration window, and change it to 10, which in this case means 10 divided by 30 frames, or 1/3 of a second. And watch how those dissolves will look skinny as a graphic form, and they'll look nice and quick.
There's good music.
Much more, but they're soft as they come on, but they come on quickly, which is nice, and change the duration of them. And I just made 2 of these graphics, but you should make them for the other ones as well, for Mar and for Tara. It is a good idea at this stage, after you've added all your graphics and you think you're all done, is just go through the piece and look at it, because if you need to make any changes to it now, it's pretty easy to tweak. If you export it and then you realize, oh, I should have made some changes, then you're going to have to export it again. Just a good thing to think about. All right, so now we're ready to export. Let's do that. First of all, to export what's in your timeline, make sure you are highlighted in the timeline, that you have this blue rectangle around this panel of your project, and then go to File, Export Media. File, Export Media, and you get your familiar export window. Go down here where it says Sequence In and Out. That's probably fine, but I would prefer entire sequence. Make sure the format setting is H.264. Output name, this matters. double click on the blue thing, and we're going to change the name and say where we want it to be saved. So double click here. Let's call this Sarasota 3. The place where it's going to be saved is in the file structure that you made way at the beginning of this. I'm going to my Sarasota 3, and I'm going to master, and I'm going to save it there. So I've told it what I want it to be called, where I want it to be saved. I haven't exported anything. I've just said where I want it to go, and then I can click export, and it'll take maybe half a minute to 45 seconds. When you're done with the export, really good idea to go into your that folder, into the master folder, and to see if the movie is there. In fact, we can do that right now. So I can hit Command H to hide my project. I'm looking into my hard drive. I'm going to Sarasota 3. I save that in master, and there's my movie. And it's all its glory. Yum, 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 yum. Very good. So, and by the way, after I do Command H, I can just click on the icon and my project comes back. And I'm going to hit save again because I'm paranoid. And I'm going to say goodbye to you. So that's pretty much it. If you have questions, you know where to find me. But this should be a helpful guide, I hope, to getting you to learn how to edit this project and larger projects from here on in. Bye-bye.